Alright, so sign charts are also a nice little visual on what's going on. So they're either going to tell us if things are positive or negative, and we're going to put what are called critical numbers for sign charts that are zeros of the function. So what I mean by that is I'm literally going to make something that looks like a number line again, and I'm going to put important numbers on there. So important numbers are my zeros or my x-intercepts or my roots or my solutions. Remember, those things are all related. So I'm going to put actually my solutions in this case. So I've got -5/3, I've got 1, and I've got 7, and I'm going to see what's going on either side of those particular little bits. So what I've got is I have to plug in a number that comes before and after each one of these numbers. So I've got, let's say, -4. So if I plug in -4 into each one of these factors, I would get -4 minus 1, which would give me -5 squared, should give me a positive overall. Plugging in -4 in for x here, I would get a negative overall. And then plugging in a -4 here, I would get a negative overall there. So a positive times a negative will overall give me a positive for that entire graph piece. Alright, again, I'm going to plug in a number in between -5/3 and 1. The easiest number is probably 0. So plugging in 0 into here, I would get 0 minus 1, quantity squared, which would be a positive overall. 0 minus 7 will give me a negative overall. And then 0 plus 5 will give me a positive overall. So this whole piece in general is going to be negative. And then in between 1 and 7, so I'm going to plug in a number in between 1 and 7. So let's say 2. So 2 minus 1 will give me a positive. Squared will still give me a positive. 2 minus 7 will give me a negative overall. And then 2 times 3 will give me 6 plus 5 will give me a positive overall. So a positive times a negative times a positive will still give me, guess what? A negative overall value. Alright, and then finally I've got my values greater than 7. That should just be a positive, and then another positive, and then another positive. So all in all, that whole graph should be positive there. Alright, so what do sign charts exactly do? Well, they tell us when our graph is above and below that axis. Specifically my x-axis, so if I had to do a rough sketch of this graph, I know that my y values over here would be positive. It would cross my x-axis going at 5/3 because my graph goes from being positive to being negative. And then somewhere down here something funky happens, so I might have something called a point of inflection that goes on at 1, which is just basically where it turns, but it doesn't really do too much. And then at 7 it goes from being negative to being positive, so my y values go from being negative to being positive, so there's also an x-intercept there as well. Cool. And honestly, in this graph, it's probably going to have a point of inflection from here to here, being more dramatic than not, let's be honest, because that is one of my zeros. Cool.